Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're on Masechtas Nedarim daf Chaf Hey. We are going to begin on Chaf Hey and off the second line from the top. So we ended off based on the Mishnah, which discussed Nidri Havai, in which at least one of the examples is when a person says a guzma. They say something which is really an impossibility or is an exaggeration. And they said that I'm making a neder on condition if I didn't see on this road Ka'oli Mitzrayim, which is 600,000 people. Now, certainly, that is a massive amount of people. Now, even though it's true that people do speak this way, but nonetheless, we still say it's not a neder. It doesn't need Shilas Chacham. On this, we saw in yesterday's daf that Rabbi posed, maybe he's actually saying a Shavuos Emes. Maybe he's actually saying the truth. Because when he said Ka'ol Mitzrayim, he wasn't referring to people. Maybe he saw a cluster of ants, and it's possible that there could have been 600,000 ants that he really did see on the road. And therefore, the question is, L'chaira, he actually made a good shvua. So he ended off, and actually we'll start off with the first line, Ki mishtaba adaita didan mishtaba. Yanan lo maskina nafshin ashum shaman. So we will always look at the way a person typically speaks, and a person will not call Nimalim ants Ole Mitzrayim. This was actually question TA30, which I overlooked, and this is what I wrote. This is not the typical meaning of how people generally understand this lashon. We don't care what the yachid may have meant. Rather, it is totally on the general understanding, which isn't an ant, a hill, rather people. Okay. So that's how I answered that question. Now the Gemara continues. Now, therefore, it means that we don't care about the individual's potential unusual interpretation. So the Gemara says, so is that in fact the situation that we don't assume or maybe even ask the person, what exactly did you mean by this? So even though it's not what a person normally would speak, but maybe nonetheless it will still work because this is maybe his meaning about his ant, about these ants. Basanya, kishehain nishboinoi. So when these people make a shvua, and on this the Ran says it's l'moida mixas. So in a situation where a person says you owe me $100, and the loiva says, yes, I owe you 50, but he was denying the other part, so he's being moida b'mixas, he's admitting the part. So then there's a chiyuv d'oraisa for that person to have to make a shua. So omrimlo, so we say to him, Havi yodei shlo al tanai shablibcha anu mashpiin oischa. It's not based on whatever is going on in your mind, el al datenu v'al das beistin. Rather, it's based on the conditions of Beistin, the way that we understand it. We don't care about what's going on in your mind. This has to be based, you have to understand that the Shvua is going to be based on our understanding. Lafuki mai, what's that coming to exclude? Lab, lafuki di asikuhu, is kudinre, v'asikuhun shemazuze. So it's possible, if we look in the Ran, is kunduri, is chatichos eitz katanos, shemesachin bahen. These are like tiny little pieces of wood. Maybe he was thinking, I gave back these little pieces of wood. That maybe it even has the name of Zuze, says the Ran, kina eshmamois. So obviously the Malva is saying you owe me money, but this guy instead is saying, oh yeah, in my mind I paid you back those pieces of wood, which of course is not what everyone else was thinking, but we need to mention it. Maybe this is actually a proof that we actually do listen and say that's possible that this person meant even the case of 600,000 ants. Don't say that, since most people don't think of it, therefore it doesn't mean anything. No, maybe the reality is that we do care about the individual's interpretation. And that's the reason why over here we are specific when it comes to Shvut Amudim and Mixus, that we make sure that he says, make sure you understand it's based on our Das, it's on the Das based in, so that you don't end up saying, oh yeah, it's based on these little pieces of wood. Whereas this low. No, the truth is we don't care that he thinks about the wood, because that doesn't mean anything. So then, if it's talking about money, so what's the difference? He's either gave the money or didn't give the money. So Afuki Mikanya de Rava. It's referring to the story of the Cain in the story of Rava. Tahu Gavra, there was a person, the Havi Masik Machabi Zuze. So he owed his friend money. Also Kabei de Rava, he went from the Rava, Amalei Laloiva Zil Parli. So he said, please pay me back. You owe me all this money. So Amalei Paraticha, I paid you back already. Amalei Rava, Nimkain Zil Shtabale de Parate. So you should go and say that you in fact paid it back. If you look in the Ran, Kleme Praticha Mixus. We're talking about a situation of Moedim and Mixus again. He paid back some. To Ikai for Bakol, Lamule Laminkat Sifra de Raisa. If you're Kaifer Bakol, there is a shvuah, but it's not a shvuah de Raisa, it's called a shvuah Hesas. And in that situation, you wouldn't be holding a Sefer Torah. Hol Machayev El shvuah Hesas Delesa Ben Kias Kitas Chayfetz. So the Ran says this must be a case that he didn't say that he owed nothing. It wasn't a cover bakol. He said, I paid you back some. Because otherwise he wouldn't be holding on to a Sefer Torah, which is within the story over here. So Azul v'Aisi Kanya, he was bringing his stick, Yoiv Zuzi b'Gavei, and he brilliantly carved out inside the stick a big hole, and he shoved all the money inside of it. Vahavi mistamich v'azol. So he was walking with this cane. Yasi alei lebeidin. He went to court. Amalei lomalva. So he went to the lender. He said, "Nakad hai kanya biyadach. Can you please hold the staff for me? Nasav sefer Torah, because he can't hold a scroll, which he needed two hands. So he therefore had to let go of the cane. So he said he gave the cane to the lender. And he made a shvuah. They paid back kol ma dehavile biyade, everything. Now, of course, in that situation, he did pay him back. He gave him the cane, which was filled with the money. Of course, after he made the shvuah, the guy gave the cane back. So, because of that, that's the reason why we make this person, we say this declaration. Havi yodeya is not al tanai shalibcha. It's not based on your trickery, which could potentially be sticking money into an empty cane, but rather it's got to be legitimate. Did you really give the money back? Fine. So therefore, again, it's not a proof. Question 9. Kishehin mashbian oisa oimrim lo havi yodeya etc. El al datenu el das basin lafuki mayam rinin lehachi lahavamina maskana. So in the havamina, we said that maybe people make a shvuah on the condition that he was talking about. He gave him like these little wood chips, which has a nickname for Zuze. The maskana is again Mekayed Rava, this unusual trickery of sticking money into this cane, into this stick. Fine. Hahu malva. So the Gemara now relates the story of a lender. Ragas v'tavra lahu kanya, and what happened? He broke. Actually, this continues, and he broke the cane. Vishtapach hanhu zuzil ara, and all the money started pouring onto the ground. Vishtakach dekushtish dava. It turned out that he really did make a truthful shvuah. Vikatil avid. Fine, and that's the end of the story. So, however it happened, the cane broke. Maybe he understood that this was like some type of a trick, or he accidentally dropped the cane and it cracked and it broke. Anyway, so this was a fascinating form of trickery. Again, let's perhaps try to establish, is it true that we don't listen and interpret possibly what an individual's thought process is, although it may be an unusual interpretation? When he was in Arvas Moav, he said to the Klal Yisrael. It's not based on your own interpretations. It's got to be based on mine. Al das Torah, al das Torah's Moshe, and das Makom of Hashem. So my Omerhu Moshe Yisrael. What was he saying? This is what he's saying. Dilma Avitoin Mili. Maybe, again, these people were really engaged in idol worship. Let's look in the Ran. Not based on your own thought process. Etc. So, therefore, what exactly is this thought process? So it's possible these people worship Avodah Zarah. V'amrisun al datenu, he said this language, mishum hachi armulhu, al dati, it's based on me, of course, which means serving Hashem. Lafuki mai, lafuki da asiku, shemo lavodos kachavim Eloha. So they call their idol worship Eloha, which is God with a lowercase g. So maybe when they made a shvuah, they're saying, yes, I'm going to serve Eloha, which is referring to idol worship. And obviously that's wrong. That's why Moshe said, I don't care what you think, it has to be based on my understanding and Hashem's. So Machlal, why did he do this? Must be the Ovid Inish, the Mishtaba, Daita, the Nafshe. Because if he didn't make that stipulation, we would say that we would listen to whatever a person's thought process is. Lo, Avodas Chachavim Ikri Eloha. We know that when it comes to Avodas Chachamim, it actually is called this. T'chsiv v'chol hey Mitzrayim b'goymer. V'lishabi yashoin demekamisun mitzvos. So the question then, therefore, instead is, so why didn't he just say, because of this issue, look in the Ran, Klomer, Yalbi she'enu b'mashma haloshin hadaitam Avodas Chachamim. Okay, so the reason is, again, because this is true. This is not something so far-fetched. It's not some strange thing that most people won't call ants Ka'oli Mitzrayim. But people do call Avodah Zarah, they do call it Eloha, because that's what the Torah says. So because it's not so far-fetched, it's not necessarily something that an individual is thinking about. This is actually what others think about as well. So why didn't he make a shua that they should do mitzvahs? Because mashma mitzvahs amelech. Because a person could think, yeah, I'm going to listen to the mitzvahs, the commandments of a king, any king, not Hashem. When shavi yasoin demi kaimitoin kol mitzvahs. Why don't we say that you should do all the mitzvahs, which sounds more like the Torah. No, so mashma mitzvah sitzes. So it's possible if you'd say it, maybe it would just mean only doing the mitzvah sitzes. The Amar Marsh, kol mitzvah sitzes keneged kol Torah keneged kol mitzvah shabbatayra. That when it comes to doing the mitzvah sitzes, it's keneged all 613 mitzvos, as it's brought down on the Rosh and elsewhere. That the word sitzes, sadiyot saf, is the gematria 600 plus 8 strings and 5 knots is 613. So therefore, maybe it's not a true complete Kabbalah. V'leshava yashayin demikamituin Torah. So maybe they're going to keep the Torah. So mashma Torah achas. It may be mashma only Torah achas. One Torah. So what does that mean? So maybe it just means keeping Torah Shabbat, not Torah Shabbat Peh, etc. So it's not again as clear as them keeping everything. So say Lashon Rabim. So it's Torah Shabbat and Torah Shabbat Peh. Mash Torah's Mincha, Torah's Chatas, Torah's Asham. So it may be referring to the laws of Karbanos. So say it more clearly. So Toros, mashma Torah's Hamincha, mitzvos is mashma mitzvos hamelech. So again, it's not necessarily complete Kabbalah. Say you're going to keep the whole Torah. So Torah kula mashma b'das kachavim. That could even just referring to not worshiping idols. The Sanya, Chamur b'das kachavim shekol kaiver b'kilu moida b'Torah kula. So if a person doesn't do avodah zarah, it's key like you kept all the Torah. Of course, when a person is not supposed to be open avodah zarah, but there's other mitzvahs beyond that too. So inami sheish mitzvahs u'sholosh esrei mitzvahs, or say specifically 613 mitzvahs. Sheish meos u'sholosh esrei mitzvahs. Elo Moshe Rabbeinu milsa deloi tricha nakat. He took something which without troubling. Says Rashi, Kishaimer al das hamakom yal dati shesham nechel hakoil. So that really included everything. So he didn't, even though you're right, there are other things that he could have said. That would have been enough. That he decided to say it in that language. Look in Iran. Lamli kihecha lamli kihecha tahavi hafara l'shvusaychu. Okay. Weiter. So imor isi nachash kikaris beisabad. So the other element of Havai we said was if a person says that my shvua or neder, according to the Girs of the Ran, that they're both mutarais. Is a person says imor isi nachash kikaris beisabad. Now a snake with a ridged back, like that of a beam, is something which doesn't exist. Right? It's not like an exaggeration in Guzma, as the Ran said in yesterday's daf. It's something which it's not even shaykh be Guzma. It's just basically a false statement. And therefore it means nothing. Now, according to, as we saw Abaya discussed, as opposed to the first Nidri Havai, when it came to Imorisi B'dercha Zekol Mitzrayim, even though it's mutter, doesn't have any power as far as a neder or shvua, still the din is that you're not going to be chayav for shvua shav. Mashen Kin here, you actually are going to be chayav for shvua shav. Okay. So on this, the Gemara says as follows: Imor isi nachash karis beisabad below. You tell me it never exists? There was a snake. Davi b'shneit shvar malka. That was in the time of this shvar malka. Ramule tliasar or vasa detivna ubo yasoin. That it went into like 1,300 storehouses full of straw, and it swallowed them. So what is that? So the Ran says shir tliasar ores teven. So we do see that there was such an enormous type of a snake over here. So why are we saying, says the Ran, Rashi, Alma dahavi gadol mikaris beisabad. It really was as big as a beam. So Amar Shmuel betaraf kuhu nachashe mitraf trife agabo taraf kamrinan. So betaraf, if we're talking about that it's smooth, kul nachshi mitraf tirife. They all are smooth. However, agabo toraf kamrinan, we're talking about on its back. Says the Rashi, nachash menumer, like a spotted snake, lo mishtakach kikuras beisabad. We never find it similar to that. It says the next Rashi, v'loi havi gadol ki hagavna. Even though it may be big, but it's not going to be in the same physical appearance. The listening taraf, so just mention taraf. Mention regarding its smoothness. So milsa gavorcha kamashwan the kores beisabad gabu taraf, that the back of it's smooth. So if you sell a beam, that this is the proper appearance. If a person sells such a beam to his friend, gabu taraf in v'ilolo. It has to be that the beam is like smooth in its back of the beam, and if not, then it's not considered to be the example that is the moicher is citing. Okay, let's continue now to Chaf Hey Amud Beis. Okay, Chaf Hey Amud Beis. Next Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows: Nidrish gagais. Which again, our paragraphs are Nedarim. So we talked about Nidri's reason, Nidri Havai. So now we're in Nidrish gagais, the third of the four. So what exactly is this case of Nidri Shgagais? So a person says with a condition, im achalti, if I ate, the im shasisi, if I drink. V'niskar she'achal v'shasa, and then he remembers that he ate and he drank. Shani oichel v'shani shaisa, that I will eat, that I will drink. V'shachach v'achal v'shasa, and he forgot and he ate and he drank. So past tense or present or in the future. Fine. Let's hold off on that for a second. Let's look at this Ran. Trei gavni katani. There's two cases. Chada de b'shas nidroi. At the time that you made this neder, hayashagig. You were already shagig. Kagon koinem im achalti im shasisi. If I ate, if I drank, so it already took place at the time of the neder. You had already have done so. The katani nami shahayashagig. That's also considered to be a shagig. B'shas haneder rui lachol. At the time in which the neder could have worked. The time you spoke, lo hayashageg, you weren't really b'shageg. Even if it comes to that I will do so, that this particular bread will be usher upon me if I will eat such and such other thing. If I drink such and such a thing today, then after the neder you ate or drank, since the neder was going on the first eating, chayil. But that moment you were b'shagig. You didn't realize that it's connected to this eating. So therefore, because it was a shagig, so therefore the neder is not going to be chal. So Oimer, back in the Mishnah, Kainim ishti nehenes li. I'm making a neder on my wife from getting hanaf from me. Why? Why am I so mad at my wife? She gunva es kisi, because I know she stole my money, or veshe kisa es bini. I know that she hit my child, and I'm not happy that she did that. V'noida shul hakato. Turned out she never hit anyone. V'noida shul gunva. She never stole. So it's interesting, it's also out of order. Ra'oisen oichen te'enim. Let's say you saw her eating, you saw someone eating te'enim, figs, and they're eating from far away. But Omer, you said, Hari aleichem carbon. It shall be upon them a carbon. V'nimsu aviv v'achiv. It turns out it was your father or brother. V'hayu imahem acherim. And there are others eating from it too. So Beishami Amrim, hein mutarin. Those people are mutter. Umash imahen. Those people who are with them, asurin. So it's referring to your relatives. It's okay that they were eating those dates. However, those figs rather, those te'enim. However, the other people not. Beis Hillel says that once within the same language, says the Ran actually, mishum the neder shehuter miksasa huter kulo. Since part of the neder is your family in which you didn't, it was a shogeg, you would have been okay with them eating the te'enim, so you would never have made a neder against them. So too, since together with that neder were these other people, so therefore the same din applies, that they are also, the din does not, there's no isser, there's no neder at all. Okay, let's look at question 10. Elu trei gavni nidrish gagos tanan. So one is the b'shas nidroi, the time you made a neder, hayashagig, going kainim imachalti, make a neder if I ate, v'shachach shachal, and you forgot that you ate already. So that's one, that at the time of the neder, you had already forgotten that you said, oh, if I eat such and such a thing, if I ate in the past, if I ate such and such a thing, but the truth is you forgot that you actually did, so therefore that's considered to be neder shkagos. Or shebishas neder lo hayashagig. The time of the neder it was no shagig at all. El b'shas haneder royal achol kegoin kainim imani oichel v'shachal v'oichel. You said in the future, if I will eat, and you forgot, you ended up eating. Okay, Tana. So let's see the Gemara. Kashem shenidrish gagos mutarin kashvul shgagos mutaros, which is why, as we saw on the previous daf, by the Maseres Shas, the Ran, and others, that the girsa, just like by over here, so too over there by Nidri Havai, we say the same thing. The same din applies by a shvua. There's no distinction. That also by shvuos shgagos mutaros. So heichadam is shvuos shgagos. Can go in Rav Kahana Barbasi. Hadain oimer. One says shvuasa dehachi amarav. I swear, I'm making an oath. This is what Rav said. Hadain oimer shvuasa dehachi amarav. So one of them said the truth, one didn't. So one of them is a shvuas shav. Now the whole chad v'chad. Each one of them adaita denashi shaper kamishtaba. Each one is properly making a shvua based on their beliefs. And therefore this is not considered to be a case of shvua shav. It's not a case of shvua shav because each one of them thought that they were right. And therefore because of that, the din is, and if you look in the Ran, it says, V'hu adin shvuos zrizin, it's by all of them. It's the same thing. Okay. So that's the idea over here. Kigoin Rav Kahana Barbasi says around Lavla Memor Deloy Mashkachinon Shvuo Shkagos El Bechia Gavner Mashkachinol who Dumi the Masnisan El Ravusa Nakale who Kiel Omer Ad Hechen Shvuo Shkagos. Okay, fine. Weiter. Ra'oisan Oichlon. So you saw a bunch of people eating these te'anim, and you're probably not too happy that you saw them doing that, and you said had carbon. So we said on your relatives it's not a neder. However, the other ones according to Beis Shammai it is. However, according to Beis Hillel, no, il v'hil mutarin because of he holds that neder shehuter miksaso is huter kulo. So tanan hasam. So we learn later on over there that it says that poischin b'shabasas v'yamatayvim v'yomtiv that chacham can find a Pesach on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. Let's look in Rashi. Rashi says she'im nadar shel oichel kol yimos hashana. Person says I'm not going to eat all year. Poischin l'charata. You can open up with finding a charata for that. Kach klum nedarta al das wasanos b'shabasas yom tovim. So too, if a person says I'm going to basically fast on Shabbos and Yom Tov, so the chacham is also allowed to find a Pesach for that. Rishayna ha'yomer originally he said oisen hayamim mutarim. Those days, because he said the whole year. So he said those days are mutar. Ushar kol hayamim asurin. However, the other days are usr. Since he usred all days, so we're gonna maybe only mater Shabbos and Yom Tov, but nothing else. Must be because we do not say, unlike the Shita Beis Hillel, we do not say neder shehuter miksaso huter kulo. Ad shebar Rabbi Kiva v'li made neder shehuter miksaso huter kulo. So just like Beis Hillel in our Mishnah, that Rabbi Kiva says that just like if you find the te'anim that some of the people eating them were relatives, so therefore because of huter miksaso huter kulo that the neder doesn't work on anyone. So too over here, when a person made this neder on not just Shabbos and Yom Tov, but he says I'm not going to eat all year. So we say that once that we find the Pesach for Shabbos and Yom Tov, so it's also going to work for the other days as well. So look at this Ran. And it's not exactly the same. The neder is bottled by itself. Not that the neder in our Mishnah it just doesn't work. Over here, there is a neder, but you need someone to be matir. So it's not exactly identical, says the Ran. The poischen nidra chayil ela shepoischen. The chacham needs to matir it. B'kavod Shabbos v'Yom Tovim. The hainu taimim mishum demasnisen ikutois bika neder. The reason why is because the ikar neder in the actual language of the neder there was a mistake, which is why it doesn't work. Because he had no intention ever to include his father. The ilba masnisen beperik poischen lekel memerhachi shemisha also al atzmo basav yayin shanachas. When a person says, I'm not going to eat meat or wine, for example, for a whole year, Yodehu Shaviru of Shabbos and Yom Tovim, the guy knows that within a year's time, there's going to be a few Shabboses, maybe 52 of them, and a bunch of Yom Tovim. Hilchach kivan deleka tois beikar neder nidr chal. The neder is chal, so therefore the Ran again points out that it's not identical because our Mishnah, it's not a neder for the father at all. Over here, we're talking about a situation, it's at least, it is a neder, just you need to find a Pesach to remove it. Okay. So, Omer Rabbi, the Kol Yama, Kol Hecha Diyamar Ilo Hayisi Yodea Shabbat Menechem. If, in the situation where the person says, if I would have known that my father was among them, Hayisa Oimer, I would have said, Kulchem Asurim Chutz Me'aba, that everyone is usher except for my father. If he would have said that, then the Kulhan Oisrin, the Oven Mutter. Obviously, that would be the situation, because if he knew already that the father was there, and he said, I don't want my father to be part of this neder, so he was already kind of excluded, and therefore he was not really part of the neder to begin with, and therefore everyone else, even according to Beis Hillel, will be usher. If I knew my father was with them, I would have said something different. I would have said, Ploni uploni asurin, va'aba mutter. So in that situation, by that different language, since he changed the language a bit, so therefore maybe in that situation the din would be different. So look at the Ran. We're going to stop there. Let's look at the Ran. So as we said, the father in that other case where he said chutz ma'aba, so he's deliberately removing his father from the neder. So everyone would hold that everyone else would be aser. But if he said ploni asurin, that's where the machlokus would be. So if you look on the Ran on Chav Vav and Aleph, so Beis Shammai kirabanan leislahu neder shotim iksaso hoterkulo. Beis Shammai will hold like the Rabbanan that say that we don't say mix that neder shehudim iksaso hoterkulo. Beis Hillel Rabbi Kiva the Kivan dehacha ikatarti. There's two things. Chada the ikatois gomer l'gabi av. There's a mistake by the father. L'gabi achrina, regarding the other people, gam kin yesh tais. B'loshan shehu oimer shil hoy yodeh she'abe b'neihem. If I knew my father was with them, I feel hacherem lo hoy oiser oisam oisel loshan. So he wouldn't have asked in the other ones also that language. She'ashan lafi shehoya makbish muvan midvarov. I feel rega that he wants to know specifically, even for a moment, kamemra shehe abba v'chal iser. Okay, fine. So again, we'll stop here. Let's just make sure we hit all the questions. Let's look at question TA1, which is for Chav Hamid Beis, which we may have done before. Let's see. Madua nakat hatana trei gavni nidrish gagais chada, which is the same thing really as question 10, but it's okay. This is TA1 for a new test already. One case you did the thing already at the time you made the neder, which clearly is a shaygeg to make this neder. Other case you didn't eat it yet. So b'shas neder, the condition wasn't yet broken until potentially later on. Ad kan.